Alright, welcome back. In this video we're going to build a water plane and make a little lake or a little pond in our landscape. And stay tuned and we'll get right on that. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Okay, we are back for another session here. And excuse me, I think what we're going to do in this one is go into our open world. And I want to put in, I'm going to save all that. And I want to start doing some decorating of this a little bit in a particular location, perhaps, if we can find a good one. I kind of like these, kind of like this area, kind of a highlands-like area a little bit. Let's see, where is that? It's right by the edge. Maybe. What I want to do is build a little lake of some sort up here, and I think up on top of this would be a good area. I think right up in here would be a good area for a little lake or a pond. Kind of got to look a little bit at the structure of it. Maybe there could be a stream coming down from here. We could have somewhere up here we could have a spring coming out and a stream coming down, and it could come down here, down fairly low, and then down in here maybe we could have a pond, and maybe there could be a little village in here of some kind, and maybe we could have some little things going on along this stream or little river. So in order to make a lake, we've got a lot of things we need to do, and this might take several videos. So one of the first things that we need to do is go into Blender and make ourselves a little plane. It seems trivial, but I want to use some displacement called tessellation to make our water look very real. So you can go up here, and where's my screen keys? View. Is it view? Tool. Screen keys. There we go. Let's turn on the screen keys so you can see what's going on. So I'm going to hit A and X and delete everything, and then with a Shift A, we're just going to add a simple plane. Zoom in here a little bit. Now, over here, I'm going to click on the little tools icon, and I'm going to come down here and add a multi-resolution modifier. And in this, we're going to turn it from this to simple. Well, first I'll show you what happens if we subdivide this a few times. You see it starts becoming round. I'll go up here to this so you can see the mesh. If we turn this to simple, it stays square, and I'm going to subdivide it again and maybe one more time. Yeah, that's pretty good. All right, so we'll go back here to the regular flat mode, and I'm going to go down here to my Unreal Engine thing, and I'm going to select export recursive. First we're going to file save as, and I'm going to put this in the assets for the project so that you'll have access to it. Unreal course. Assets, Blender. We'll create a new folder. We'll call this water plane, and we'll do the same with this. We'll just call it water plane. That's all it is. It's a water plane. And with the Blender file saved, we'll come down here and click export, and it's exported, so we should be able to save it now. Close it now. It should be saved, and go back into Unreal Engine. So let's go into here. Now, first thing we need to do is decide where to store this kind of stuff. So it's sort of related to the landscape, but in reality we could use water materials in different kinds of dungeons and all kinds of things. So I'm going to create a top level folder here called blueprints. And we've already got textures and materials and models. So here in models, we'll create a new folder. We'll call this water. We may do some other things, I don't know, but for now, let me go grab that file. Videos. Unreal Course. Assets. And in case you want to see this in the in our Git repository under Assets and Blender, we find this water plane, and then there will be exported FBX, and this static mesh, and this FBX right here is the file we want. So I'm going to grab that, drag it over, drop it in here, and say import all. And there's our plane. Very simple. Now we need a material to go on that plane. This is a bit more tricky. All right. So let's go into our top level materials folder here and right click and select new material. And we're going to call this water underscore mat. And open it up. All right. There's a couple things we need to do. With this selected, what we want this to be, we want to turn on some things here that are turned off. You know, some of them are grayed out and some of them are lit up. Well, we need some of these things that are grayed out. To do that, we're going to come over here, and where it says blend mode, opaque, we're going to turn that to translucent, because after all, it's going to be water, and water is translucent. And now you notice that we get some additional things here like opacity and reflection and stuff. Now, down a little bit further down here, see if I can remember all of this stuff. All right, let me double check the reference material here. We want it to be a surface translucency volume under lighting mode. And we're going to want to turn on this, and we can use PN triangles. And I think that's all we need to set. I think that gives me everything. Yes, it does. All right, that gives me everything I need. All right, to start off, we're going to turn some of these into properties or that we can set from within our material instance. All right, so metallic is one. We're going to just right click and say make it a property. Specular, promote to property. Roughness, we want to promote to property. Let me double check here. Specular roughness. Opacity, we want to promote to property. We're going to be able to control all of these from our material instance. And then down here, reflection. Refraction, not reflection. Promote to property. Good. All right, step one complete. Now, step two is a little more tricky. We're going to go out here and grab some files. Now, I pulled these files from a website called textures.com, and I made, hold on one second. Textures. There's my water textures. Okay. We want, all we really need, so we need to, I'm sorry, we need to go back here to textures. Oh, that's a boatload of text. That's all those textures. Okay, well, I guess it doesn't matter. That's, a lot of that's the content stuff that I downloaded. All I need from this is the displacement and the normal texture. So I'm going to drag these over, and I'll show you these in a second. And now go back to my, was imported. Okay, good. I'm going to close these HUDs so they're not in the way. Now we'll start with the normal map, and we'll work on the displacement later. We'll do that later. So what we want first is a texture sample. Well, actually, we can just go grab those. We can come in here and type in water, and there's my two textures I just grabbed. Well, we'll grab both of them, pull them up here, drop them in, and there's our two samples. All right, so we have our, if they'll show up. Okay, so that one's the normal, and this one's the displacement. All right, and we're going to use the displacement to affect this tessellation displacement here, this world displacement here, which is part of the tessellation. All right, so how are we going to do that? Well, first of all, we're going to do a couple of things with both of these maps. All right, first of all, I want to, between the two, I want them moving across, well, I forgot. We're going to duplicate these. They're going to be exactly the same textures, but we're going to move them slightly differently. We're going to move them at angles to each other to just kind of confuse the whole thing, so it doesn't look like the water's moving just across the screen. And we're going to do that with what's called a panner, P-A-N-N-E-R. There's a panner. Copy it. We'll put another one down here. These two sections are virtually identical except for one item. All right. Now we need a texture coordinate as well, and the easiest way to get that is press and hold U and left click, and we get our texture coordinates. And we're going to take the texture coordinates and put them into the panner. And then with the panner selected, we're going to take a look over here at the details pane. So the direction that I want this to go in the X direction is very slow. I want it to go about 0.05. So it's going to move very slowly in the X direction, but I don't want it to move XY. I want it to move at an angle. So I'm going to give it also 0.08 maybe in the Y direction. So it'll move at kind of a strange angle across it with two different speeds on that panner. And the output of this panner is going to, what it's going to do is take these UVs and slowly move them in those directions by those amounts. And we're going to plug this into these two UVs for the moment. But actually, before we actually plug it in here, though, we're going to do one other thing. We're going to do a multiply. And take this into a multiply node, then plug it into the coordinates, and we're going to pull it off of here, and we're going to call this, this is going to be a parameter again. Okay. We're just going to right click on B and promote to parameter, and we're going to call this tiling A underscore A. No, tiling space A. All right. Good. Now, well, we've already got this down here. We're going to just duplicate these, Control C, Control V, put this into the panner, and this one here, instead of calling tiling A, we're going to call it tiling B. So we have two different tiling values for each of these things. We can make them different sizes, and we'll get to that in a second. We'll plug this into this UVs and this into this UVs, and that part's all set up. Now we've got one other thing we need to do. I'm going to move these back a little bit, give myself a little bit more room, because what we need to do is a pair of LIRPs, so linear interpolates. So if we type in linear interpolate, we need two of these, one for here and one, but what we're going to interpolate between is the two. This should be set. We're going to start with these defaulted to 1, these values here. Fix that real quick. All right. And all right. So we're going to take this one, and this alpha here, we're going to promote this to a parameter, and we're not going to call it alpha, we're going to call it the normal, the normal blend. And what it's going to do is blend between these normals here and these normals here in accordance with what this blend is. And we're going to set that initially to 0.5. So it's just 50-50 blending by default. And this one down here, we're going to take this alpha and promote this to a parameter. And we're going to call this displacement blend. And it's going to blend between this displacement here and this displacement here. And is that set to 1? It is. Coordinates, time and speed, planar, 0.5, 0.8. So this one I'm going to make go the opposite direction on this planar down here. I'm going to set it to a default of minus 0.08 and minus 0.05. So it just moves very slowly. All right. Now that looks like an awful lot, but what we're going to do is take this normal output here and plug it into the normal input here, and we'll take this displacement output and put it into world displacement here, and now we're going to go set some of these values to defaults so that we've got something reasonable. So this metallic I'm going to set to a default of 1. The specular I'm going to set to about 0.5. The roughness I'm also going to set to 0.5, though we might set that down lower in the other one. The opacity, actually I want that to be 1, and the reflection we'll set to 0.5. Alright, and then there's some things we could set on the slider, like this could be 0 to 1 maximum. Let's go back through these. Opacity, yeah, that should be 0 to 1. I'm just checking my notes here. It's a lot to keep in your head all at once. Roughness can be from 0 to 1, 0 to a maximum of 1. Specular, we can leave it both zeros, and metallic, we can leave it both zeros in case we want to crank those for some reason. All right. So far, so good. We have nearly got a water material. There's only one last thing we have to do, and that is set up the actual input color. And that's really easy. We're just going to create a base color. So we'll just do that like this. No, we won't. We'll promote this to a parameter. All right, so we've got a base color, but we're going to break this link. And what we're going to do is another lerp. Now, what we're setting up here is a thing called. We'll put this in place so we've got it here. What we want to do is an effect called a Fresnel effect. And a Fresnel effect is that things you can't see through them, or they look shiny at a steep angle, but they look different looking head on, directly on. If you look straight down into water like a pool, you can see the bottom. But if you look out across it, you can only see the surface of the water, or you see the bottom very, very fuzzily. Depending on how clear the water is or how smooth the water is, you might be able to see a little bit into it at an angle. But typically, like on a lake or the ocean or something, when you look out across the water, you can't see through it. But when you look down, you can see down into it at least a ways. That's a Fresnel effect. And we have in here a node called a Fresnel, which is spelled Fresnel. And this has some values associated with this exponent in and this base reflect fraction in. So what we're going to do is promote those both to parameters, because we're going to use them. Promote to parameter, and we'll set those up in the system. I'm going to leave this as black. And I'm going to put this into B. And the reason I'm putting it into B is because when this is 0, I'm going to put this into the alpha from the Fresnel. When this is 0, it means use A, all of A, and none of B. When it's 1, it means use none of A and all of B. So what this is basically saying is, make this black when the Fresnel angle is very steep, or make it dark. Make it dark when the angle is very direct on, and make it nothing when it's at a steep angle. So we'll see the color that we set in this, or in the not in this, but in the we'll see this color come through. So we'll just leave it as black. And we'll take this and plug it into here. And hopefully, if I set everything up right in a few seconds here, let's save this. We should see something that looks sort of like water on the screen with any luck. What's my opacity set to over here? Opacity is actually set to 0. I probably should default the opacity to 0 in here. All right, I'm not sure what's going on, but that's taking a bit of time to save. So I'm going to pause the video, and I'll be back when this is done. Oh, I don't have to pause the video. It's done, but our thing here is black. So that calls for a wee bit of troubleshooting. Let's see. What have we got wrong? That's set there. Do I have some default values in that? That's set to 0. That's set to 0. What is wrong? Oh, no, these have values. normal blend. Maybe do I have a default value for this? It's 0.5. Normal blend is 0.5. Yeah, that blend is 0.5. Normal. Base colored alpha. That's all correct. Why why on earth is this coming out black? It should not be black. Alright, I am going to pause the video and troubleshoot this, and I will let you know what I find out when I get back. Okay, we are back, and the problem was that I had this opacity set to 1. It needs to be set to 0 to see this in here, and we won't set it all the way down to or all the way up to 1, but we'll add some opacity to it to make it look much more clearly like water. But here you can see the on the screen here the water look of this. So let's go. We'll apply this. And of course it's gonna think for a while. And once this is done here and saved, we'll go over here to our landscape, and we'll put our water plane down, put the material on it. But actually we're going to make a material instance first. We'll put the material instance on it, and we'll start adjusting these parameters to make this look like water. We'll also make a little pond area, or a little lake area, so we'll figure out what we need to do with that. So let's just begin by finding a low spot here, and we'll put our we'll go ahead and put down our plane. So that's in our models water. Did I not import it? Did I not import the model? I thought I did. Where did I put it? Materials. That's our, oh, I see. I've got this filter on. Okay, water. Ah, good. So here's our water plane. We can pull it up a little bit. We can scale it up. Something like this to start with. We'll landscape this to make it fit, but this will be our starter water plane right about here, and it will probably make it a little bit lower at the end of the day. Oh, actually, there's kind of a low spot there, isn't there? Let's move it over. Move it over. Move it over. Can we move it down some? That's kind of looking pondish. Spread it out this way a little bit, and this way. How big a pond will this be? It would probably be too big. It's kind of narrowing. Maybe we can raise the ground over here. Let's start off with that. So with it selected, we're going to just come over here. Here's our materials. Okay, let's go to our materials. Here's our water material. Right click, create material instance, and we'll just keep the name. And it's the material instance that we want to put on here on the materials. And there it is, transparent water. Okay, so we can open up our material instance now, peel it off, and come over here where we can see the water. Get around here where we can see it in some reasonable way. I want to slow this down, not 6, maybe 3. Yeah, there we go. Alright, so I want to get it to an angle where I can see it somewhat. Let's begin with the color. So here's that base color that I set up as a parameter. We kind of want it maybe a blue-green color, a little bit dark. We want the opacity not completely gone, or our color won't show through. I think 0.25 is probably reasonable. 1 second. let's try this color. Okay. Now, as for the other items, we want to start working a little bit on these. I'm going to set that to minus 0.5 for the that's the base reflect fraction, and for the exponent in about 1.2. So not that one. Exponent in 1.2. That gets that going. Metallic should be probably about 0.2. Opacity opacity needs to be fairly high, actually, 0.85. There we go. We're starting to see something that maybe looks like water now. Refraction we can set to about 0.25, and then the specular, we'll set that about 0.8. And now we've got the two tilings. All right, so the two tilings, I want it somewhere up around 12 and 12, except I want the second one to be bigger than that, so I want to set it about 4. So we've got some big waves and some little waves crisscrossing each other. And now let's move this up here and see what our water looks like. And there is the beginnings of water plane. Now, it looks like this could be a pond, all right, but it probably needs to bring up this part here a little bit. So let's do this. Going here to, I'm going over here to my landscape, sculpt, and this, and that's a really, really big thing. Let's get this a lot smaller. And there's a few settings I want to fix. Brush fall off. I want, let's make it, what, 1. And let's raise this up a little bit in here. We'll smooth that out, and we've got to fix up the and now we're going to go over here to smooth. Let's get up above this a little bit. Let's smooth this off real good, especially around the edges where the water's running into it, and make this look real nice. And for some strange reason, I think it's because the lighting probably needs to be rebuilt. Yeah, lighting needs to be rebuilt. So there we have a pond, and we can go down in here, and it's a bit shallow, it looks like. So let's make it a bit deeper. I'm gonna increase my brush size here a little bit, hold shift, and in the center here I'm gonna push this down. What? Oh, I'm smoothing. Let me Control Z out of that a couple of times. We need to go back to sculpt. Hold shift and push this down a little bit. So we've got some depth in there. And let's go back to this mode and fly down here and take a look, see how much room we got. Oh yeah. Oh, it's a very deep hole. I pushed that down a lot. I've got to... Okay, well, that's okay. It's a deep water hole. Okay. And then maybe that kind of makes sense for the location. So we can probably, it looks like, raise up this area a little bit maybe. Oh, no, I kind of like that. Maybe we'll have a stream trickling down through here at some point in time. We've got a little bit of water showing through there. That's okay. Oh, not too bad. We do have some water. Now here you can see the Fresnel that I'm talking about. All right. We look out across the water and it's reflecty and hard to see through, but we look down and we can see down into the bottom of this. All right. Now we're going to do some other things with this. We're going to add a volume to it so that it looks like water when you're underneath it. Let's hit play real quick. We'll expand this up so it's nice and big. And we'll take a walk in here. Let's see. Drop down. And this is a hole you can't get out of if you have to walk. But we're gonna put a volume in here and make it a swimming volume. So and she'll be able to swim around in here. So there we go. Our first water plane. Okay, well that was good. We got our water plane going. We got our little lake. And now we've just got a little fixing up to do, put some volumes around it and make it swimmable. And we'll probably throw in some character animations as well so she can actually swim. So if you liked the video, hit that like button. If you really liked it, hit that subscribe button. And if you want to get notifications when I upload new videos, hit the notify button. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.